It's a cold, very rainy, very wet, very awful winter day in Natchitoches, Louisiana. But I'm here and I've convinced my grandmother to share some of her favorite stories with me, as she says, for posterity's sake. So this will probably be the best 30 minutes you'll spend this week. She's an amazing woman. Just watch what I'm talking about.
And that,
even but yeah, just
and it, I mean, the earth, it was like the earth stood still. Nobody, we didn't know there were 200 people standing behind us, because those 200 people were, as in always, we were. In fact, they just reverenced the moment that like it should have been. And it was wonderful. Now, am I recording now?
Let's go.
Well, shall I start with going out there, because that?
Yes.
Yes, because we had the car then. Bill and I, Doc Mathis, and this Anthony boy. And I cannot remember his first name, but he was a member of the Anthony Lumber Company, and he was going out there. We were all going out there for summer jobs. Bill and I were going to be on lookout. Doc was going to be on lookout further over in the state of Washington, and I don't know what Anthony was going to do, but he had a job lined up too. We got in the car and we left, and from the time that we left Natchitoches, Louisiana, until the time we let him out at the police station in Coeur d'Alene, Washington, he said one sentence. Did you guys see that cape? Literally, crossed my heart, truth. We left, and at Rapid City, before we got into Rapid City, we pulled over into a hayfield to spend the night. And we got off the road where it was good and dark, nobody could see the car, and we pulled hay bales together, and we lay on them and we went to sleep. But what we didn't know was that we were laying on these hay bales, and about maybe 20 feet from where we were laying on the hay bales, there was a barbed wire fence, and right on the other side of it was a railroad track, and we were lying in direct line of the curb, where it curved to go into Rapid City. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, here comes the train. And it was like the old steam engine, with the terrible whistle on it. And that curve must have been his signal to blow the whistle, coming into Rapid City. Because we're all laying there sound asleep, and that thing goes off. And that big old light, he's coming around that curve, and it is totally right on us. And I thought, this is it, the end of the world. It's happened. Right out, I'm sitting in the hayfield in the end of the world, and why aren't I going somewhere? But there were choice words said. People jumped up and tried to run with their sleeping bag on and couldn't do anything. And so finally we got calmed back down and realized what had happened to us. But truthfully, I thought, end of the world. There's this monster bright light shining on me, and this terrible noise. Thought it was real enough to me. So anyway, we all got laying back down, lay there. Finally, somebody said, "Anybody asleep?" Everybody said, "No." Think we ought to just get up? Yeah. So we got out in the middle of the night and we went on into Rapid City. We head for Rapid City, and we get into there, and we get in there and blew a muffler. So that wrecked our budget, because we had to get the muffler. And we got the muffler and took off, but nobody had any money left, so we couldn't get any more hamburgers till we get somewhere where we get some money. And Doc, we were going to drop Anthony off first, because he was going at Coeur d'Alene. That's the first place we came to. And then Doc was going to hitchhike from Coeur d'Alene onto Enumclaw. But he had it, I think it was about like $1.35 in his pocket. And Bill said, Doc, here, well, you don't have it. That's okay. I'm good. He said, that's coffee and 2 donuts. And he said, I'd make it. And so we put him out on the side of the road where about 3 roads came together. And he said, now get on. Don't stand here and watch. It's bad luck. And so he started walking toward the road, and we turned around, and that's where we left him with $1.30 in his pocket with the hope of a cup of coffee and 2 donuts. We go on up to Coeur d'Alene then, and Bill said, Anthony, this is where you got to get out. And it's nighttime when we're there. And he said, okay. Bill said, where you want to go? You want to try to find your hotel room? He said, no, I ain't got the money. I said, that's right, you don't have any more than we do. Well, he said, I got my bus ticket though. Bill said, well, I'll take you to the bus station. And you can wait there till tomorrow, and you know. Well, we get to the bus station and it's not open. So Bill, he said, I can't leave him sitting here. He didn't know what, I mean, he just didn't know what to do. So we took him to the police station, and Bill took him inside, and he talked to the desk guy there, and he said he needs to be at the bus station in the morning at such and so time. Let him sleep on the bench and wake him up in time and point him in the right direction. He said, gotcha, sir, that'll be fine. And we left him on a bench inside the police station, and we would go to our destination in Washington. Now that's a whole complete story. That's epic, that whole summer. I mean, we did so much stuff. But, and you sure it didn't get that other part about coming home when we were in Yellowstone? Well, we went on up to Newport, Washington, and that's where Bill and I spent the summer. We went up on Little Rock, up on top of the mountain, up to the lookout, not the Little Rock, the lookout. And I don't know how many miles it was up there, but we had to leave our car. I believe it was about 2 or 2.5 miles at this spot because there was no more road. We had to pack in from there. We had to pack in all our groceries. The guys, they had a rigged up Jeep with high wheels on it and had it rigged up, and they could make it up there, but we couldn't in a regular car. And so we took off with all this stuff and shuffled it up there to our lookout. We had all of our groceries for the summer and our sleeping bags and what little clothes we needed. And we got up there, and it's a wooden lookout. And the first thing that kind of scared the badookie out of me was there were a couple of steps missing on the stairs that went up there, you know, and if you got in a hurry, well, you would miss them and you would fall through and kill yourself. And besides, my legs are short, so it was real hard for me to make myself step over that space and get to the next one. Well, I got used to that. Anyway, I got up there, and then the dispatcher, the guy that was our boss that lived in Newport, started telling us what all we had to do. If a storm started coming, if it got close, we had to stand on little wooden stools that had glass feet, and we had to work this firefinder thing out in the middle and try to pinpoint a general direction of where the strike was, because you most probably wouldn't see a fire if it was raining anyway. But a week and a half later it could start because it had struck into the understory and all that fuel on the ground. But he said, and you cannot get off of that stool when it's lightning, because as long as you're on that stool, the lightning can hit the lookout and you'll be perfectly all right. Just don't get off the stool. I said, well, Dallas, what happens if you pee your pants and fall off? He said, you're dead. He said, you won't get off. He said, I promise you, you won't get off. Well, I was totally terrified of that happening. I just couldn't. And then he showed us our beds, and one of them they were at right angles to each other over in one corner, and they were metal, and they were grounded with copper pipes. And he said, if you get a really hot storm, don't be surprised if your copper pipes melt into each other. Well, we got an electrical storm. It did not come directly over us. I don't believe I'd lived over it. I think it would have just scared me so bad I just croaked right there. If one strike of lightning on that thing, and that'd been it. Tell Dallas he's lied. He got me. But anyway, we had a storm, and we did spend all night trying to pinpoint. And then we'd have to go over it every day. Every few hours, we'd have to make the same circle in order to see if there was any smoke coming up. We got no smoke from that. That's the only bad storm we had. But one Sunday, it was raining, cold, and all of a sudden we spot a smoke. So Bill has to take off and go cross country to that smoke. And it's a couple of illegal campers. They did not, because if we had campers out there, Dallas would radio us their location because he had gotten a permit. So we would mark that location, and when we saw smoke coming up from there, we knew that were those campers. So he gave them a good chewing out and told them, don't do that. You cost me about a 6-mile hike, to find you. And so that was only smoke that we had all summer at all. And that was the worst storm that we had. We had other storms, but they went around, and so we didn't have to deal with that. We spent most nights sitting out on the deck with our feet hanging over, propped up on the rail, watching the livestock, the animals play down below. The deer, we had cats come through, all kind of raccoons, everything under the sun. We never did see a bear. We knew that we had some. We found traces of it. And one night, there were a bunch of deer playing down below, and all of a sudden they got real still, and just poof, they were all gone. Everything was gone. So we knew that had to be a bear, because everything in those woods, that's how they react to it. They leave. And we watched the airplanes fly down below us, because we were on Timber Mountain, which was the highest one in that range of the mountains. And plus we were in a 50-foot tower. We could see into Canada from where we were, because we were right on the Washington-Oregon line. And there were some metal buildings up there, government something that looked like big Quonset huts, and it looked like maybe they were lined up row after row. There most probably was 50 of them. I don't know what it was, but that we knew that when we were looking at that, we were looking into Canada. Every time somebody came up, it's the rule of the mountain, when somebody's on lookout, when you go up, you take them fresh meat. Because you can keep bacon up there, but you couldn't keep fresh meat for very long. Oh, you could keep it for a little while. But so there were people that came up from time to time, most probably once every 2 weeks or so. And they would always bring us fresh meat, but that also meant I had to cook for them. And I cooked, all I had was it was about 3-foot square wood stove, and it was maybe, the whole thing was 24 inches off the floor, because the whole fire tower was glass, and nothing could come up above that glass. There was nothing allowed to obstruct the view, because while you're there, you just got in the habit. you never stood still really, or your eyes never stood still. They were constantly making that circle that was your responsibility. And but you'd be outside reading. It was fine, no obstruction out there, but you could have nothing up there in front of that glass, and you had to clean it every day. Had to wash them little boogers every day, and to keep that clean. When we first got there, they left us up there, and then we had a wind blow and rain, no storm. But I told Bill, I said, this thing feels like it's going to fall over. I mean, it swayed, it rocked, it rolled. I was not comfortable. We told Dallas the next day, called him on the radio. We said, this thing, it tried to blow over last night. He said, oh, we forgot to tighten the guy wires. He said, we didn't do. He said, I'll be back up there this afternoon. They had not tied us down. And so they come back that afternoon, and they tightened all that stuff down, and that was much, much better. It did not sway any then until the 4th of July. And we started getting cold, and the wind started blowing. And I was in my bed, Bill was in his. And he said, I am freezing to death. I said, I'm kind of cold too. And so we take both of our sleeping bags, and we put them down on the floor, and we get there where we can be together, cover up with everything we got. And that old thing, it was swaying. Then we said, the guy wires are done. There's no hope for us. Well, it gets daylight. It's getting daylight, and we have the big set of radios for the whole district. Everybody reports to us. We've reported to Newport. And I said, I think it's about 5 o'clock, nearly time for the radio to come on, Well, when I got up, I said, Bill, it's snowing, 4th of July. I said, I always said it'd be a cold day in July, I said, it's here, it's happened. 4th of July, he said, it's snowing. I said, yeah, it's not snowing like that though. It's doing like this. And the minute I touched the radio to call Dallas and tell him it was snowing up here, I touched that phone, and it said, Timber Mountain, come in. Timber Mountain, come in. I said, I'm here. He said, Lord mercy, I've been trying for an hour to get you. I said, it's just now 5 o'clock. He said, well, I thought maybe you had it on because it was snowing. So I said, how did you know? He said, there's a bad one coming. Get off the mountain. Get off the mountain as quick as you can. So,
I've not heard this yet. I've not heard this story.
You haven't heard this? Oh my goodness, I love this story.
I've never heard
It was awful. Anyway, our truck is down, our car, it's that old green Plymouth, I remember now. It's down there where we had to park it, which is also where we had to walk to get water, by the way. Bill had a 5-gallon backpack, and I had 2 1.5 gallons that I carried side to side. That's what we and that's also where we took our bath. You got your water to take up there first, and then you soaked up and jumped in the water to rinse off because you could barely get wet all over before you had to get out because it was so cold. Oh, it was cold. Anyway, we get back down there where our car is. Well, when Bill parked it, he parked it on this level spot, and backed it in and everything. And the battery's dead. Totally, teetotally, completely dead. And it's snowing, and it's cold. And so, where it's sitting, we tried pushing it, but it was a rise, and then there was a little bump. Now, he said, if we can get it just up on that bump, and said, I'll get in, and you push it off, and it'll roll. And said, when it does, I can hot pop the clutch, and we'll be going. So, Of course, we're down there stomping around in the mud and the snow, and it's melting and it's muddy, and the wind's blowing and the snow's flying. And Bill took the jack, and he jacked it up on the back. And he pushed as hard as he could. We'd both get back there and push, and he'd keep pushing, and when he couldn't make it go any further, I'd run around there and put a rock behind the wheel so it couldn't roll back. I'm down in the mud and grit and grind. We were down there at that spot by 6 o'clock, and we finally got it over the hump and rolling down the mountain a little before noon. We worked, Lord, and this whole time he said, you know, it's going to come a blizzard. And it just kept getting thicker and thicker, and I was burning up. I mean, we both were, we were working so hard. And so we finally get it, and we take off down the mountain. And I looked at Bill, and he's got mud on him, you know, and everything. And he looked at me, and I guess he thought, well, we both looked the same. And I never looked at myself. I was just glad to be inside and running, you know. Well, we get to this little place called Usk, one cafe, few houses. And boy, we stopped at that cafe, and inside we went, sat down in the booth, and here comes a lady, and she looked at me, she said, honey, where have you been? I said, we just came off timber. She said, oh, okay. Said, that tells the story. She said, yeah, you were going to really get it up there. He said, we're even going to get some down here. But she said, you come in the kitchen and let me clean you up. Well, I walked in there, and there was a mirror there, and I was covered. I was totally covered with mud. Bill, I don't know why Bill didn't say anything about it. I guess he thought he looked the same way and what we were going to do about it. Because he never said, you know. She took some of these, I never will forget. They looked as white as that bottle over there, dish rags, dishcloths. And she threw them in the sink and started wetting them and wiping me down and wiping me off. And I thought, those clothes are so white, and they were so muddy when she got through with me. But she cleaned me up, and she fixed breakfast for us and everything. And we left there and went on back to Newport. And it was such a big storm and everything, it took so long for it. We stayed down in Newport, I imagine, almost first week in August. We spent all of July and part of August down there, and of course we were coming back in September, last part of September. So we had a nice break in between the going up and the coming down. But that was funny. We worked hard, we laughed, oh, it was a mess. But I also thought, yep, I've seen that cold day in July. I have seen it. But it was fun, and the rest of that summer was taken up with just ordinary stuff. Oh no, it wasn't. Everybody said when everybody gets off of the mountain, we all go back to Newport, and Dallas and Myrtle will fix supper for us, and Myrtle will fix her special spaghetti. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. Going to special spaghetti. Well, she's fixed it. It was so bland and so dull and so dead. I thought, this is good. They all like this. They ought to eat something good from Louisiana. But I figured that they would most probably think, if I cooked something, just season it normally, that I was trying to kill them. Because I did give some of them dark roast community coffee, and they thought I was going to kill them with that. You know, they'd had it with that. So I guess food and that together would have. But for something that I look forward to all summer long, this special spaghetti was all I could do to eat it. I kid you not. Yeah, well, the spaghetti episode was not wonderful. The spaghetti wasn't wonderful. We did get to meet some of the people that I'd only talked to on the radio. I was the only deep South southerner up there. So I had lots of radio traffic at night. We could only visit after dark when fire danger went down and all that sort of thing. And so they would all call and they would ask me to say certain things like pork chop, or something like that. And of course, the more they wanted me to sound like the southerner, the more I did, even worse than I am. And anyway, we went down off of Timber Mountain, got to Usk. You got that part on there? Okay. So we got to Usk, we get on to Newport, and because it was such a big storm, we did not have to go back on lookout for, I would say, a good month, maybe longer. We go back up there, and we finish out the summer. We go down, and Myrtle makes us that terrible, terrible, terrible spaghetti, and something was wrong with all those people because they liked it. And I really thought that they would, if I had cooked it, they would have thought I was trying to kill them because it would have had some flavor to it. But we got through that and we started back home, and Doc's supposed to ride with us, so we could get word from him. He said he was hitching over, and we could pick him up in Coeur d'Alene, where we put him off. John Anthony calls.
Got it.
And John said, "I'm not going back with you guys." That's the most I'd ever heard him say in his life. Oh, why? I'm not going back to school this fall. I've decided to stay out here and work. Okay. So your folks know you're not coming back? Oh yeah, I've talked to them. Okay, well, we'll see you when you make it back to Natchitoches. And so we left without John Anthony. We never did know what all took place, but he stayed out there and worked. In fact, he eventually moved out there, took a job after finishing college, and moved out to the West Coast. While Doc was out there, he met this girl and ended up marrying her. So it was a pretty eventful summer. It was a cold day in July. Doc found the love of his life, and John Anthony learned to talk. And that's about all I'd say about that. But,
and what year was it?
What?
What year was it?
This was in the summer of 1955. And anyway, we start back and we go back to Yellowstone, and it was here that undoubtedly the most phenomenal thing that will ever happen in my life happened there. It was just something that I'll tell you about, but it was just so unbelievable. It is still a very emotional thing for me. Every time I try to tell it, I cry. Maybe I won't this time. But we get into Yellowstone, and it is very late at night. There are a few little lights here and there, but we go in and we stop and we find a fire pit, and we stop and we get out and we build a fire, and we get out our black skillet and pour some beans in it, and we're sitting there waiting for them to get hot and stir it on them and trying to stay warm, and we hear this woof, 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 and there's a black bear standing up looking at our beans. And so we scared the bear off. And we are fixing to eat, and this little Volkswagen drives up to the camp spot right next to us, but it doesn't have a fireplace. So these people get out, and they're from Scotland. Their names are Chris and Bob. And they come over and share our fireplace while they eat their little bit of supper. And then we get ready to go to bed. We're all sleeping in the truck. And so Doc said he'd sleep on the picnic table. So we pulled the car up right by the picnic table, and the little people are next door, right next to us in their Volkswagen. They had put all of their stuff out by the picnic table, out of the car, their food and everything, and the bear comes back. And Doc is screaming for me to open the door so he can get in the car, and I won't do it because I'm afraid the bear's going to get in too. And he's saying open the door, and I say no. The bear's gotten in their food, and they're upset. And so anyway, we get rid of the bear. And we put them back in their Volkswagen, and then we pile all their groceries in on top of them and slam the door. And they're good for the night. They just can't breathe. They got canned stuff on sitting on them. And then Doc, he gets in the truck with us to sleep because he doesn't want to stay out on the picnic table with the bear.
Right.
Well, we all make the night, and the next morning we get up, and it is positively the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen anywhere. We're on the lawn in front of Yellowstone Lodge. Beautiful, beautiful place. And out in front of us is the lake, Yellowstone Lake, and all these huge pine or spruce trees or whatever they are. Anyway, they reach nearly to heaven. And it's what I call God light, because the sun was coming through in stripes all the way down and on that lake. And it is just so totally gorgeous. It was holy. I don't know what the word, but that's the feeling it gave me. Anyway, so I'm standing there in amazement with all of this, and Chris and Bob have come over and are helping us at our table, and he says, would you like for me to play my bagpipes for you? And I'm going to do it again. I said yes. And he got them out, and then he got the honey, and heated this honey and put it into the bagpipes and started working them to soften up the skin so that they would play. And then he started playing for us. And that light was still there, that lake was still there. There was not, in all of the territory around us, there was not a sound. All there was those bagpipes rolling over that mountain, across that lake, through those trees. And he played and played, and then he stopped, and when he did, well, I think what made us notice the people, if I remember right now, they clapped. And we turned around, and there were most probably 200 people ringed behind us at the edge of the trees. They had not come close. They hadn't disturbed us. They had not come into our space, so to speak. But they had heard it, and they had come from all over that campground. It was so quiet. I guess I don't know how far you could have heard it. But anyway, they went away after he quit playing at that time, and then he started playing a little more and looked up, and here comes this cute little fella in his black breeches and white shirt and his black bow tie, and he says, "Sir, my boss, who is the manager of the lodge, wants you to come and play for his customers, for the people anyway that were in the restaurant." And he said, in the hotel, and he said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't. I'm playing for my friends," and sent him on back up to lodge. And we finished. He put the bagpipe away, and we had breakfast together, and then they got in their little Volkswagen with all their groceries, and we got in our car without John Anthony, and we headed back to Natchitoches. Kept up with them for a few years, Christmas cards and stuff, but after that we lost him and haven't heard from him since. But he afforded us positively one of the most awesome, well, it is the most awesome experience I ever expect to have this side of glory. That's all it is to it.